Welcome. Thank you for joining HEDNA's Connectivity Working Group Attribute Model presentation today. We're very pleased with the registration at HEDNA. 202 members have signed up for the session today. We're really excited about that. I'm Ann Cole, I'm Vice President at HEDNA. I'm also the Connectivity Working Group Board Liaison, and I'm really excited to be part of this session today. There's been quite a body of work that's been put together by a very large, diverse group at HEDNA, from the hospitality side as well as the technology side, and that's culminated in a white paper which was distributed in May. I want to remind everyone of the antitrust situation here. We're a trade organization, so there can be no discussion of rates, surcharges, any customers, any sharing of sensitive information, and any information that's competitively sensitive. So I'm sure you're all very used to that. I would also add that we'll be in the presentation, there'll be hypothetical situations that show for the modeling purposes as an opportunity for them to kind of drive the point home. But we'll be sharing certainly no industry secrets here. The information, the fuller version of our antitrust and code of conduct is available on the HEDNA.org slide. We will be recording this session, and it will be available to you on YouTube, where the HEDNA videos have been posted. As part of our presentation today, the first about 30 minutes will be our presenters going through the document that they've put together. And then we'll have Q&A. So if you have questions that pop up during the session, please enter them into the Q&A and we'll go through them at the back end. If we have a lot of questions, I may need to weed through them and pick those that are most useful for the full group. The HEDNA Connectivity Working Group has been a very active group and a very important group within the HEDNA organization. They look at outlining the shopping and buying models for the industry. They look at what technology and system requirements would be needed to be able to execute on that. And they really enable the continued evolution of the hospitality industry, looking for new ways in which to engage guests, engage shoppers and turn them into guests. The attribute model paper, as I mentioned, has been published. And if you would like to get involved in this, within this connectivity working group or others, please contact our education@hedna.org. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our presenters today. Scott LaRusso is Director of Product Management at Intercontinental Hotel Group, and Klaus Kohlmeier, Chief Evangelist at Ideas. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for putting together this presentation, and we look forward to getting more insights on the attribute model.
Thanks, Anne. I appreciate that. So we want to talk a little bit about the attribute model. Obviously, that's why we're here. And first off, there are many benefits to the attribute model. One of the things that we know definitely is that in today's day and age, consumers really want a more personalized experience. And the attribute model puts the customer at the benefit of choosing what they really want in their hotel stay. And also you can look at some other ancillary items, but it really gets them the option to choose what's most important to them, and then ultimately what they're willing to pay for. We do know this is not a new concept. Maybe for the hospitality industry, it's a little bit of a new concept for us, but it's really not a new concept in industry. As the intro for this attribute model went out, and we were talking about this webinar, we referenced the pizza model. So today, everybody knows that you can go out and build Domino's pizza, or you can have many other types of things. I think there's Subway, Chipotle, there's tons of food aspects out there for the attribute model. And we see where people can go in and select what's most important to them. They don't just have to choose the full deluxe pizza with everything it has. We do know that some of these attributes they add on there, some of them are priced, some of them are not. But it gives the consumer the flexibility to get what they really want. And as I know in my family, we all don't like the exact same type of pizza. So it makes it more flexible and easier for us. We've also seen it in the airline industry. So there are concepts today that the airlines already started to use towards the attribute model, where they have basic economy today. It comes stripped down, there's not many choices. You get the seat on the plane, but choosing the exact seat or having a baggage option or anything is not applicable. If you want to move up to the next, you can move up to a different economy section and have the more flexibility where attributes can be chosen, whether it's the seat or the type of bag you're putting on or so forth. So we talked about packages a little bit. I've heard before that, well, packages fulfill the attribute model, and they do in some aspect, but not truly, because bundled packages don't allow the flexibility of the attribute model. So it'd be the same thing in the pizza model. If you say, well, my bundle is the deluxe pizza, well, that's all the types of meats and everything on there, whether you like it or not. And current packages are based on the perception of what the consumer needs and not actually what the consumer really wants. So they have to take everything or leave it. And packages limit the potential audience, therefore the hotel's revenue. So why is the attribute model really there? What are the key things that we're pursuing in this, and what's the big push behind it? It is to provide personalization, and we've already touched on that a little bit. It's to enable the customer to get the benefits they need and be able to choose what's most beneficial to them and then leave the other things they really don't care about out. And that, therefore, it builds loyalty because they feel like that they're really taken care of. They can get the needs they have fulfilled and we're caring for them. Intrinsically, there also is monetization of the hotel. There is a revenue play here, and there is a lot of benefit there. And Klaus will expound on that a little bit later on where some of our benefits are with that. And it creates the flexibility, both for the hotel as well as the customer, because you don't have to fit everything into one package or one model. So we have seen with COVID-19 that's come up recently, and everyone's asked, well, how can attribute model help this? Or the attribute model definitely will or won't help that. We've seen back and forth. There is some benefits with the attribute model. For example, low floor. Some people prefer a low floor so they don't have to take the elevator, and therefore that's one aspect of COVID-19 they don't have to address. Now there are other things like content and other information that we're not really addressing in the attribute model. We'll talk about it a little bit later, but that's not one of the key focuses we're on right now. So Klaus is going to review the customer experience journey.
Hey, thanks, Scott. I'm really excited for this webinar. Lots of friends, colleagues, industry partners on the call here. So I'm really, really excited. This has been a passion of mine for many, many years. And I think when I paint the future of how people shop, it is going to be very, very different than what we have today, right? I get very frustrated that I cannot book today a overwater bungalow in a 5-star hotel at a at a budget of $500 anywhere in North America. I still have to go in, pick my check-in, my checkout date, pick a location, and then start searching. I cannot book a room with a certain view. If you go today on Google and put in a hotel with Eiffel Tower view, you will probably get 500 different hotels popping up, even on Google. And there's many, many examples that are creating a lot of friction and a lot of frustration with customers throughout the booking journey today. And I think it's long overdue that we break down the journey and break down the attributes and break down the choices and really give the customer the opportunity to book what they want at the price they want for the type of experience that they want. And I don't think we talk a lot about experience or enough about experience when we talk about the booking journey today. So when we look at the guest experience overall, we know that at the booking, at the point of booking, we have a lot of opportunities today where we can maximize the choices and we can offer choices to the customers that are very different to today. And we're talking sometimes in the industry about the Amazonization of the booking journey. So when you go to Amazon today and you want to buy a t-shirt, what do you get? You have the different sizes, you have the different colors, you have potentially the different brands, you have the different necks, a V-neck, a crew neck, long sleeve, short sleeve. You have all these different attributes that are available to you that we're all used to. And then when it gets to the hotel industry, we're still stuck with the same booking journey and the same booking behavior than we were for the last 25 years since the emergence of the internet. So I'm personally very frustrated about it. I think the industry could do much, much better. And customers are telling us in research over research that they want a more personalized, they want a more granular, they want a more customer-driven booking journey overall. And just one recent research that was done, 57% of consumers that were asked said they're willing to give up some personal information in order to get that very personal and attribute-based customer journey. And the majority of people also consistently states that they want customization. So this is not something that we're pushing onto the consumers or onto the market. This is really the market telling us as an industry that they want that. We just haven't been able to do it for a number of reasons, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. So Scott, if you go to the next slide. Or am I driving? I don't know. All right. So when it comes to obviously the booking journey, and if we're able to break down the product that we have today into its attributes, and we're able to offer customers more choice, they're able to either pick a prepackaged product like a room with a view and breakfast and Wi-Fi on a low floor, and we can offer that as a package, or we can unbundle the journey and offer people the ability to shop like they're doing today in any retail site. So you could potentially build your own experience by choosing a base room type, let's say a double room. Then I'm adding on a balcony. I'm adding on a high floor. I'm adding on extra space, which might be a junior suite or other amenities. I'm adding on services. All of these are capabilities that will enable us as an industry not just to offer better choice, but also to offer revenue opportunities for our hotels. So by offering a more granular option of choices, you're not able increasing the guest value or the value of the experience to the guest, but you're also increasing the opportunity to make additional money. And back to the airline model that Scott referred to before, airlines have done that for a while. Have they always done it well, or have they not done it well? Well, sometimes they probably overdo it, but airlines through ancillary revenues have done an amazing job of generating billions and billions of dollars. Just one example on the next slide that we'll have here in a moment. Oh, sorry, not yet, later. But one example that one example we're going to talk about is the ancillary revenues of the baggage in a moment. So we really need to be able to offer both the bundles and a la carte product services to the customers. Some customers will want to have a very frictionless, very quick experience, like a corporate customer that only cares about location and the best room at the best price. Others will want to choose their journey in very intricate details that we're not able to offer today. Sorry, so if we go to the next slide now, Scott, thank you. So when we're talking about personalization, the future that I see is really these personalized on multiple levels. First of all, we'll be able to understand in detail what the requirements are of a person that is starting to shop. Already there is data that's being collected, obviously, through many, many different touch points. And that data is probably not used at 100% today. But in the future, we'll be able to know in a pretty detailed manner what that customer is most likely looking for, or what that customer is coming to shop for. And it might not be the individual customer, but it might be cohorts of customers that we have identified. We can then give them either a number of choices. Either we make it very quick and very frictionless, as I said, for a business traveler or for simple requirements, and they will get a optimist price. Or we can make it around value and around upsell and about additional revenue opportunities. So for a corporate traveler, that could be a very quick transaction, book in one click and you're ready to go. For a leisure customer, it could be a myriad of options that they can choose from. Do you want the high floor? Do you want the view? Do you want space for children? Do you want other amenities that go with that? So we would then provide an optimized offer for the cheapest possible option. There's then an opportunity later on to provide upsell offers and then add on the king view floor at its individual price point that is optimized. And when we're talking about revenue opportunities, systems of the future will be able to optimize each attribute on its own value. And when I'm talking about optimization, is the price optimization. So if we know what the optimal price is for a king versus a view versus a floor versus more space or less space, then it becomes very dynamic and it becomes very, very efficient and productive. One of the key challenges here is obviously understanding inventory allocation and inventory optimization, and we'll talk a little bit later about that in more detail. Scott, back to you.
Okay, one of the things that we had before was talking about the monetization model that the airlines went through. So we saw where they went in and put price points on some of their ancillaries. So we've heard, back and forth with the hotel industry is we really don't want to nickel and dime the consumer, and that's not what it's here about, but it's just showing that by monetizing some of those ancillaries, the airline industry was able to reap a lot of revenue, and it actually turned them around quite efficiently. So is there a revenue play here? Absolutely. When we look at the solutioning and what works in progress right now, as Klaus said, 57% of our consumers are saying they want to give up some of their personal information to be able to have that personalization, be able to have those offers. You can also go through a personalization effort and make that request without giving up any information. As Klaus talked about in the shopping model today, one of the frustrations I have is I'm willing to drive 5 hours and I want to get to a beach, but I want to look at what a king bed and what the best rate is. Just show me somewhere to get out of my house and do something now. And that's really impossible. I have to shop city after city after city and try and figure it out. So it doesn't make it easy for the consumer. And that's where, when we talked about the survey that went out for HEDNA, 74% said, yeah, they're aware of this as a concept. 42% said they're doing something with their brand and they're working towards this. So that's good news, is that it is, there is an awareness and there is progress that we're being made. But there are multiple facets we have to go through. So it's not just defining attributes and defining the pricing. There are many different things we have to go to. And some of those things, as I alluded to earlier, is around property content. So one thing we've talked about in industry is, everybody has a king bed, and the king bed is the same attribute all the way around. How you define that king bed or the value it brings to your hotel is some of the content and some of that powerful information you have. We have to be able to take that and distribute that, but it doesn't stop us from moving forward. Also, things around rate strategy and parity. So we do know that there are very important attributes that can be priced. There are some that may not be priced, and there are some that probably will never be priced, especially when we're looking at some things, as we'll talk about later, for regulatory requirements for ADA, or things that are not able to be priced by legal aspects. But those are also some of the things that we deal with in parity as well.
Sorry, and when I just think about the first two items here, Scott, really good bullet points here. When it comes to content, people need to think about dynamic content, right? I know of booking engines today, primarily online booking engines, that are able to dynamically offer content that is targeted already to the IP addresses or to the source market where that person might be shopping from, right? So if you're booking, or if you're looking at a hotel that is based in the UK and you're a shopper from the US, you are able to see specific content that is targeted to somebody flying in from the US, right? That might be early check-in, that might be CNN or some other US-centric channel, and it might be a shower or early breakfast, right? But if you're coming in from Europe or from other areas, the content might be very different. So there's already capabilities out there today that is able to provide that content on an attribute level, based on the customer's potential preferences or assumed preferences. And on rate strategy and parity, and very interesting to look at that in a little bit more detail. I guess one question is, if you have an individual shopping cart that is tailor-made to the person that is shopping, how are you going to compare that across your competitors or across different hotels? So what does parity mean when everyone builds their own shopping experience or booking experience, right? Probably will be very difficult, or more and more difficult, to look at that unless you break it down to the lowest common denominator, which is just the room type, like a single bed or a double bed or a king size bed. So I think it's going to get more complicated when we talk about parity, but there's also opportunities to create some very cool differentiation, right? If I go on booking.com today, and I've actually done that, and I look at a key market like New York or LA, and I take out all the pictures and I take the brand name off a description of a hotel, and I go in and say, show me all the 5-star hotels in LA for this period of time. you cannot differentiate anymore what is what brand, because you know, the OTAs have made it very efficient, so they're very mindful that everything looks very standardized. But with attribute-based shopping, you're able to differentiate yourself and say, well, if I know that you're a leisure traveler, I'm going to display you something a little bit more targeted than a business traveler, and other areas. So lots of opportunities in content, rate strategy, and parity from my perspective.
Yeah, great point. Yeah, and some of that parity and how you deal with it applies back to the connectivity as well, because not every distribution partner will have the same capabilities at the same time, and not every hotel company will have the same attributes at the same time. So how do we deal with that as part of the discussions that need to continue to happen? And that's how we need to work through this together. You know, contractual commercial obligations too is how do we deal with some of the current contracts in place, even from sales contracts and things like that. How do you deal with some of the things you've already offered up to clients to be able to fulfill their needs? How do we deal with all of that contractual parity type things when we already have those contracts in place today that don't address the attribute model? So we need to be able to work together to revamp those, amend those a little bit as well. And then one of the things that I hear often is operational needs. How do we get the hotels to fulfill this? Or how do we make this happen so that the customer doesn't feel any hiccups from the time they select what's most beneficial to them to getting it fulfilled on property? So there's lots of things we have to work through on that aspect as well. You know, what we don't want to do is sell the dream and let the hotel service the nightmare. So we have to work through that.
Yeah, what I see, Scott, there is real automation, and I don't want to use the artificial intelligence word, but better understanding and automation really starting to kick in here. But I think when it comes to connectivity, you know, the direct versus indirect distribution channels, we're going to have a world where both exist next to each other, right? So when you talk about the third party, like wholesalers or bed banks or some of the OTAs, they might not have the capabilities today to actually do attributes. So we'll still have to rebundle the attributes and offer something up that is more of a standard, you know, traditional room and rate plans. But some other companies will probably be more advanced and will be able to absorb the individual attributes. So that's, I guess, we'll see a world of both for a long time before everyone upgrades their technology. When it gets to operational needs, I think that's a key point that's very often overlooked. And I think it's inevitable that we'll see some very smart startup, and I've seen some already that have tried and are making some progress on that, to automate the room assignment process, where very smart science and mathematics and technology will kick in, and rather than having people at the hotel assigning rooms, you know, 24 or 48 hours before arrival, you will have systems that will allow you to automatically soft assign rooms based on attributes. And as people are shopping and booking rooms that are confirmed attributes, no longer, you know, based on availability, but guaranteed, the system will automatically reshuffle the inventory and optimize the inventory at a hotel to make it the most optimized inventory allocation possible. And that's really impossible to do with a human. So we'll need automation, and we'll need very smart science and a lot of computing power to do that. It's not that far-fetched. I've seen some examples of that, and it's really, really exciting how that's going to start coming together.
Yeah, I've seen some of those models as well, and I think it's AI is an incredible play here, and we'll see more of that come in. But great points on there. The one thing that we definitely do know is that nobody can do this alone. This isn't something that one hotel company can go out, one distribution company can go out. We all need to be working on this together. And that's really the construct of this entire white paper and the reason we're having this whole webinar. So how do we work together, and what are some of the key things we need to work on? So we've talked about some of the commercial issues. We do know, and Klaus has expounded on a few of those, there are tons of technical constraints today. But if we don't strategize and work together, we're not going to overcome those constraints. We've seen some other industries do it that we said, you know, they can't grow that fast, and they've moved pretty quickly on it. We can do that.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead. I don't
No,
want to
please,
interrupt
Gus.
you.
No, go ahead.
I guess if I rank order them, I think, and tick them off, you know, consumer trust is obviously the first one I would like to address. And as I said, as we talked earlier, studies and research has proven over and over again that consumers want that. They're used to it. They now are demanding it from the hotel industry, and I think it's increasingly frustrating for people not to be able to do that. So I think that's the first tick for me. Technical constraints is a big one because obviously there's a lot of development that needs to happen. I think over the last 5-6 years, we have some very big technology companies spending tens and millions and hundreds of millions of dollars actually building some of these capabilities out. So I'm very confident that the ball has started to roll, and I'm seeing some very exciting developments in the startup world as well. There are some very smart PMS providers coming out of Europe and at other places that are kind of ahead of it and actually built their whole system with an attribute model from in mind or from the ground up. So I think the technical constraints are going to be more about distribution, and they'll be more about how do other channels absorb the attributes that as well. Commercial is a big one. You know, how do we get third parties to agree to all of that? And how do we continue to adhere to whatever constraints we have commercially with our key partners? And then the regulatory concerns, you know, are always something that everyone needs to be aware of. But I get increasingly confident that this is accelerating, and this is something that will definitely, through this crisis that we're currently experiencing, we'll also see more and more opportunities to take advantage of attributes to offer something better to customers than today.
Absolutely. And I couldn't agree with you more on the consumer trust side. I think that is highly important. That's one of the reasons we're doing this, is because we've heard from consumers in big surveys that have gone out saying, look, we need this and we really want the personalization, but we have to be careful with their trust and not nickel and dime them and not have the perception of that's what this is all about. What it's about is meeting the needs that the consumer wants, and there happens to be a monetization play on that as well. But it's not the vice versa. It's not the antithesis of that. But again, why would companies go in and do this? Well, it's to meet the needs of the consumer. But I also, if I'm going to be spending money as a technology company or someone to invest, I have to be able to have an ROI on it. And there is a very solid ROI. So who can help us solve this? So we've talked at length about everybody coming together, and we will recap a little bit about how to get involved and how we continue to move together. But really it's around industry advocates, and it's about people pushing the industry to change. And that's like HEDNA. One of the important things is for us all to come together and move this as an industry, because the industry is lagging behind. There's travel retailers that we need to have involved as well, and that's the Expedia, the Bookings.com, all of the groups that can help us distribute this attribute model and all the different products and services. There's the inventory providers, and those are from every hotel company to other ones that have hotel or rooms to give up, and possibly ancillary revenue in the future as well. And that's everything from the IHG, Marriott, Hilton, Hyatt's, and so forth.
Yeah, and I'm kind of excited when I take the right three areas here. HDNG is just launching a attribute-based or attribute modeling work group that's just about to be kicked off. So if anyone if anyone is interested in is an HDNG member, please go to their website and look at work groups, and you'll find the attribute-based or attribute-based model work group sign up form there. So we see more and more interest from different technology associations. So that's definitely something that's very encouraging. Open Travel Alliance and other industry governance bodies, you know, in the airline world, IATA and others were very active in what's called NDC, or next generation distribution capabilities, which is kind of the attribute-based model. So IATA was very, very forceful in that, and they drove that to a conclusion where now airlines are starting to move towards NDC slowly, but accelerating as well. And we'll again, we will have to follow what the airlines are doing, what other companies are doing. So again, very encouraging signs there, and a lot of learning from the airline world. And then technology partners, we talked about connectivity being one of the key areas here. I think the first core element here is obviously the CRS, and how the CRS connects to the distribution channels, direct and indirect distribution channels, and the technology ecosystem in general just needs to accelerate the conversations and move forward. We as a company, we've had these conversations for the last, I guess, 2 years or 2.5 years, and had lots of different conversation with different partners in the technology world. And again, it's encouraging to see more and more interest coming from the different partners. So I think we'll again see something, some more developments happening over the next 12 to 18 months. In my mind, there is no question that this is the future and this is going to happen. The question is just how fast will it happen? And hopefully we'll make it faster than other initiatives that have happened in the past.
Yeah, I hope so as well. I think the consumers are pushing us to move faster. So just to give us a little conclusion and wrap up before we get into Q&A. So we've talked about how our customers expect the personalization. The hospital industry is definitely lagging. We are just not meeting what the consumers need today. So we're trying to react to that, but how do we react to that smartly? We can't go all out in the beginning. We need to all work together and have a proper approach. We also need to make sure we're defining our products and how it's going to be, or else it's going to be done by others. So how can a company define your own products and how that fits into the attribute model is something that you really need to consider. And then how we're going to work with everybody to distribute those. If other industries can do it, obviously we can, but we can do it better. And we also are unique. So we can't just follow the airline model and say, look, the airlines have done this. We need to go and see what they did with NDC. NDC was a great approach for them and it's working and they're moving towards it. But there's also a lot other flexibility that we have from the hotel industry. You know, we don't have to worry about someone checking in and checking out of an airline seat like you do in a hotel at different times. We have different unique opportunities we need to address. You also don't have a stayover that you have to deal with on an airline seat. So, and those are some of the challenges we have to deal with.
Yeah, I think the key kind of the one that stands out for me is kind of don't overcomplicate, right? Yes, we can wait until we have the money to spend millions or thousands of dollars on a new system. Yes, we can wait until everyone comes together. Yes, we can wait until we feel we're ready. But you don't have to wait, right? You can use today's technology that you have, and you can look at your inventory and you can look at what you're selling, and you can think to yourself, well, how can I sell this better, right? Can I break out my attributes in more granular detail? Can I price them a little bit? Can I differentiate them and price them a little bit more granularly, right? Can I start maybe with 10 or 20% of my inventory and put that on the distribution shelves in a different way than I've done in the past? So yes, technology is going to be important and automation is going to be critical, especially when it comes to the inventory optimization. But if you can start small, and some companies and more companies are already doing that and starting small and working on kind of trial and error and test and learn, and then move from the crawl, walk to the run.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's definitely the crawl, walk, run approach. And I don't think at any point we are ready to do the run right now. And as Klaus had talked about earlier too, some companies, some partners will be doing crawl while other ones may be doing walk or run. So we have to have a model that we can build off of because not everybody's going to be ready at the same time. And we do know that changes to the attribute model is going to take time. As Klaus said, we do want to move quicker. We don't want this to lag behind, but we also have to move at the right pace. What's the proper pace for us so that we're not just tripping over ourselves trying to move so quickly? But that's where these continued conversations are key, and everyone else coming together and having those conversations and moving along together as industry is crucial. So again, if you want to be part of this, and we really hope you'll get involved and so we can have these joint conversations, reach out at education@hedna.org. And you can sign up there, and then we will, HEDNA will reach out to you and see about how we can have joint conversations. We'll have some more webinars, but we will have some Zoom calls and so forth to try and get us together and have some ongoing open conversation and dialogue so we can work through it together.
Yeah, let's start the conversation and the dialogue now, Scott, with the Q&A. But before we do that, Sandy here reminded me that the HDNG attribute modeling for distribution ecosystem is actually a joint initiative of HDNG, HEDNA, and Open Travel. And its participation is open to members of any of these organizations. So thanks for pointing that out, Sandy. Appreciate it. All right, Scott, how do we want to do the Q&A? Do we have any questions yet? Oh, sorry, the white paper. Why don't we do that first?
Yeah, so if you do want to access the white paper, here is the URL to get to it. You will receive an email afterwards for all those that have been signed up with this deck. A recording of this will be on YouTube, but you can also have the reference to this as well. We'll send that out to you in case you don't have time to copy it down right now.
Right, and from our side, we're very excited. Just this morning, we finished up our attribute model white paper, which we co-wrote with another company over the last couple months. So as an extra benefit, all of the participants will get that. We'll send that over in the next few days as well. So that's an additional goodie that you're getting to participate in the HEDNA webinar.
Yeah, that's great, Klaus. All right,
Well,
so
thank
Q&A.
you. Yep, as the questions build up, I want to go back to is this really the right time to look at an initiative like this? As we know, there's a lot of turmoil in the hospitality industry. You know, roles are shifting, people on furlough. There's a lot of dynamics going on. So if you're going to start more simply, as you were talking about, and think around the dynamic content, you know, from a lodging or hotel side, what would you be focusing on in the near term? And Scott, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so I think it's absolutely the time to be considering it. We do have to be sensitive that a lot of the hotel companies are looking at what it takes just to keep the lights on right now. The industry has not bounced back like we wanted it to as quickly. And we do know there is the challenges with that. So, but again, we will come out of this. We will come out of this at some point. Who knows what that point is? We don't know just yet. It could be months, it could be a year. But at the point we come out of it, we do know that the consumer already is dictating the needs for personalization. So we need to have a strong strategy and a strong discussion so that when we come out of it, we come out of it prepared. What we don't want to do is wait for a year from now and say, hey, we're out of this and everything's great. Okay, now let's consider about what we might do in the future.
I think, and good question, when is the right time? That would be my answer, right? Is the right time when you're busy again and when your hotels are full, and hopefully that will be very soon, or is the right time when when it's a little bit, when you have the time to reflect and revisit the strategies that have worked in the past and have not worked in the past, right? And I would argue, especially in these times right now where customer needs have changed, right? As Scott mentioned, somebody might be looking for a room on a low floor because they don't want to take the elevator, right? Or somebody might be looking for a room that's away from the elevator because they don't want all the people walking by their rooms. I think there's opportunities right now, if you have the resources, to look at your inventory and look at your products and redefine how you're going to position them to the changing customer needs. So it's never the right time. It's very difficult right now. Resources are constrained, and especially costs are constrained. But I would encourage people to take the opportunity to revisit their inventory right now and have a look of how they're going to reposition it.
Really makes sense. Thank you. I'll go to one of the questions here. In your view, does an AM model still have a base of inventory being a room type that has assigned attributes? Or should it be a matrix of attributes that show the customer all attributes, and based on what they choose, the universe of rooms with those attributes gets smaller?
Yeah, if I want to start kind of quickly, what the implementation that I've seen, or the examples that I've seen, is where just like you have a shopping cart today, right? You start with the price for a room. So let's say there's like $149 for a king room or a double bedroom or a base room. And then you can add on the individual attributes, right? You could add on a jacuzzi for another $28, and you can add on a balcony with another $30, and you can add on the view for another $5 or free Wi-Fi, whatever it is, right? So in the end, you are not talking about room types anymore. In the end, you're talking just like a retailer talks about SKUs, right? The inventory types or the products that you could potentially sell. And the attribute-based model is nothing different than the Lego blocks or the collection of attributes that kind of get bundled together to make a room type. So the room type is the sum of all the attributes that match a particular type of inventory.
Right. Yeah, it's truly that unique identifier for all of those attributes put together, but the base really is a room itself. If you look at a 200 room hotel, the thing that's common to every is they're a room. The attributes may be different for each one, and each one is unique in a different way. That's what defines it and how you can assign that unique piece. But in the future, we also have to look at how you can expand on this. There are other things out there that are ancillary revenues that maybe have a base with other attributes on it. Even if you look at meals, or if you look at cars and things like that. The basic, like if you look at breakfast, for example, well, breakfast is a base, but how it's defined, whether it's continental, whether it's a buffet, even though we're not doing buffet much anymore, but whether it's to go or so forth, those are all the attributes of that. So there is a base component and a building block you start with.
Mm-hmm. So I have a question about RMS. How do you see the world of RMS adapting to this model? Do we consider two types of dynamic pricing, a basic room type and then a personalized?
Yeah, thanks, Olivier, for the question. It's a great question. The way we have kind of tackled the problem is that we need to understand demand. Revenue management is all about understanding the customer and then the right price for the right customer, right channel, and all that stuff we talked about 20 years ago. But the way we see it evolving is that we understand demand by type of customer or cohort of customer for each attribute and product, if you want to call it that way. And if we understand the demand for each of the attributes and each of the customer types, then we can price that demand accordingly and can price those attributes accordingly, right? So if you're a certain type of customer and we know that you value a larger room, then that might be an opportunity to price a little bit more aggressively if we understand that you're less sensitive to a price increase for a larger room type, versus if we know that you don't care about the room type, then we might be pricing that differently, right? So you could end up with a situation where you have tens of thousands of variables and you need to all price them in all different combinations. But as Scott talked about, crawl, walk, run, and keeping it simple, we feel there's a lot of value that can be created by just pricing the attributes individually. And then when people pick them and choose them, then the package is like a shopping cart, right? You add on your different attributes and you get your total price out of that. So it's a combination of dynamic pricing for attributes and understanding who we're offering it to and what that customer is looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's starting with the building blocks and the crawl approach. First of all, by defining your attributes and having people select what's most important to them, you can understand that demand. And then you can react appropriately if you want to price differently or not. But you can also look at the future of dynamic. So if you're selecting many attributes at once, do you have a dynamic discount or flexibility? But that is more of a walk and run approach. I think first we have to look at what are those building blocks, what's the key needs, and then how we address that from a revenue optimization strategy and use those learnings to adapt over the future.
Mm-hmm. There's a question around the experimental implementations already. What has been kind of the experience with increase in guest satisfaction and additional revenue? Do you have any additional stats that you could kind of share?
Scott, do you want to take that or?
Go ahead, Klaus.
Experimental implementations, not much I can share about that. There has been some research that's been done that has shown that going to an attribute-based model has an impact on guest satisfaction and revenue, right? And if I take that back a step and I'm thinking about something that's in place today, which is, for example, upselling, right? All of the companies do some form of upselling today, and upselling at pre-arrival, post-booking, pre-arrival, or at arrival is nothing else than understanding your customer and offering something along attributes to that consumer when they're standing in front of you at check-in, or when they're about to, 3 days before arrival. So if you're looking at, an example of how attributes can drive revenue, look at the value that upselling today provides. And in my experience, I've worked for an upselling company previously. It can be anywhere between 2 and 3% rev per uplift if it's done properly, right? So, and that is, upselling is nothing else than attribute-based selling. So look at that as a demonstration of how the value of attributes on attribute modeling.
You're on mute, Anne.
Thank you. The next question we have here is should the user be identified before the shopping? And how would that be done? Email address, other information, phone number, rewards program?
Yeah. So there definitely is a loyalty play here, and there is the benefit of someone having their information in a loyalty profile so that when you do go shopping, we can help you move quicker along the journey. So, one thing that I definitely know, and I'll speak about myself, is I am a far different traveler on my personal versus my business travel. I have two different profiles because I'm looking for different things. And I have different needs from the type of hotel I want, let alone the type of attributes I'm looking for. So it is important to have that, but it's not something you have to move along the personalization journey. You can have someone go out and select what's most important for them, and then they can do that in the shopping experience and get the results back. The part of a loyalty play is it's more beneficial for that individual to automatically get offers sent to them, maybe even before they're really shopping, or we know some of their history so that we can help them out in their travel journey and make it a little bit easier for them.
Thanks for that. That's a great point. Do you think that'll be something that evolves first on Brand.com versus more broadly through distribution partners?
I think so. I think it'll probably be more of a Brand.com play in the beginning. We do know that there is benefits with all of the channels though. But that's probably the easiest to start in a crawl, walk, run approach.
Another question. I understand that we need to build a global domain model for the attributes, but how can that model reflect the sometimes very individual attributes certain hotels might want to use to differentiate?
Sure, yeah, and like I said before, we have there's so many commonalities across hotel companies. A king bed or an upper floor or a view can be very similar things, but then there are unique things. But if you define a unique attribute and let the content define that, how we distribute that on, we can do that. And we've seen that because we have many different aspects from hotels. If we look at a specialized view, well, it depends where you are in the world. It depends what your focus is. You can have a specialized view of the Eiffel Tower, or you can have one of the ocean, but which ocean, right? So it varies. And the content is the part that can go along with the attribute and really define that specialization of that hotel.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult. Yeah, let's be honest, right? If I mentioned this example, which is a real example about the Eiffel Tower, right? And I've done this multiple times with Google. If I type in hotel with Eiffel Tower view, I'd literally get 500 hotels, right? And I can guarantee you not all 500 have Eiffel Tower view, right? So even today, if Google can't crack it, right? It's very, very difficult to have a global model, but I'm pretty sure that there, as Scott said, that there is some commonalities across many hotels, right? And probably 80% is going to be common across many hotels, and the other 20% will be individual.
Do you feel as if the industry's reached the turning point where things that have been so difficult in the past to do, there'll be new vision and focus that will really make the fundamental changes we need to achieve things such as an attribute model?
I think yes. And the reason is because of the investment that's been done by some very large brands over the last few years, which enables them to take advantage of attribute modeling capabilities. I believe that will create a big halo effect for other players in the industry. We now see that also in the regional chains that are starting to get more and more interested in it and starting to deploy or starting to pilot some technology around that. And I think the third part why I'm very encouraged is because I mentioned some of the very creative startups that are building new systems, property management systems, and inventory optimization systems that are built with attribute-based modeling or attribute modeling as a core function. So they're not built and then attribute is like a second thought. They're actually thinking about attributes first and then building the capabilities around that. So that is going to create a whole other wave over the next couple of years as these startups are becoming more and more prevalent in the industry.
Yeah,
thinking about content up front is a great idea from my perspective.
I think Klaus is spot on with those. I think the only other thing I'd add to it is technology today is moving a lot quicker, and the systems out there enable us to react to it. If we look at 5 years ago and AI was a theory, well, today AI can enable the operations side a lot easier. It can enable so many things, and it really is leverageable today. There's many different companies out there that have great AI platforms, and how hotel companies and other companies can leverage it is key to us moving quicker.
We're getting up towards our time here. We still have a few minutes.
Yeah, just one more thing here,
Sure.
and this is public knowledge, right? So if you look at some of the earnings calls of the big brands, I would say probably out of the top 5 global brands, the majority of CEOs have gone on record in their earnings calls and talk about new or next generation CRS capabilities that incorporate attribute-based shopping, right? So it's not something that is done in secret. The CEOs have gone out and said, we have new reservation capabilities, we have new revenue management capabilities, and we believe that this is the future, right? So anyone, I encourage them just to Google attribute-based shopping or next generation reservation capabilities. And I see Scott smiling there.
Yeah.
So engage your partners that you work with today, find out what they're doing. We've talked about CRS, RMS, connectivity, and for
PMS,
those on the call
absolutely, yes,
that want to stay engaged, what would you recommend to them on how to continue this conversation, learn more, and get more engaged?
So it's obviously things like this. It's partner in these. Let's come together at HEDNA, HTNG, OTA, and continue to have these conversations. That's where you're getting a lot of the information back. Bring it back to your company and strategize on how you're going to be engaged in the future. Whether you want to look at a crawl, walk, run approach, where that is in your roadmap, but continue to have those conversations. Reach out to me, reach out to Klaus and others in the industry. Let's continue to have those little conversations here and there and how we partner together. And I think that's a lot how this white paper started. I had some conversations in industry while we're doing other projects and said, hey, we really want to get into this area and we think this is important, and we agreed and we figured out how can we come together to move this along. The one thing that you have to know in this industry is it's the networking, it's the people you work with, and it's not the power of one, it's the power of many that moves this along.
And from a technology ecosystem, I speak on behalf of the technology ecosystem here. Ask your technology partners, right? What is their view of whatever it's called, whatever they call it, intelligent retailing or attribute-based shopping or attribute-based modeling, customer choice pricing. What is their view and what is their roadmap look like, and how are they feeling? How do they have a handle on it, and how does their vision look around attributes and customer choice shopping and pricing? I think it's also upon all of us in the industry to have these conversations with our partners and within the ecosystem and ask them how they are preparing for that future, which again is going to be inevitable, right? It's just a question of time.
Yep.
Well, thank you. For those on the call, we'll be sending out at the end of the session a link to the materials so you all have access to that. We look forward to the further distribution of the attribute model white paper. If you've not read it or need to share it within your organization, you'll know where to find it at hedna.org. And then the recording of the session will be posted on YouTube. I really want to thank Scott and Klaus. This has been really engaging. You know, it's kind of a complex topic, but you broke it down in a way, you know, that was more digestible. We could understand it and then have some meaningful conversation around it. So thank you so much for your time. For all of you on the call, I look forward to other HEDNA webinars coming up. Stay in touch. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.